下一个主讲嘉宾，我们邀请的是斯坦福大学的教授Beverley Kane from Stanford University。Beverley 教授呢是斯坦福大学的这个兼临床医学的助理教授，也是斯坦福大学目前的这个养生太极拳，就是我们这个 medical 太极的这个主任。那同时呢，他的 new publication， 他的新书呢也要发表，就是借助这个大会，我们也帮他做了一些这个推广，非常好，在亚马逊在我们这个协会的网站上有他的书的销售的连接，是关于这个通过骑马减压和情绪自我调节的一个著作。那希望大家有机会去浏览一下。然后现在我们就把这个视频呢连线到我们的这个 Beverley 教授 ，and now we try to connect to Beverley 教授。Then yes, and you are online, and you can start it.
Right. Thank you very much. I am very honored to be a speaker at the first international online forum. Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge Master Li Shudong as my Taiji teacher, wonderful teacher. He introduced me to this whole world of Taiji and Qigong, and everything that I say tonight is somewhat thanks to Master Li. My talk is on a program at Stanford called Equanimity, Somatic Horsemanship, and it is Qigong in the company of horses. So the full name of the course is Equanimity, Somatic Horsemanship, Stress Reduction, and Emotional Self-Regulation in the company of horses. Equanimity is a pun, which means a humorous variation on the word equanimity, EQUANIMITY, which means mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper, especially under stress. And if you were there for Dr. Ong's presentation, he said this word twice in his presentation. I was very happy to see that. So what is somatic horsemanship? Somatic horsemanship is the practice of cultivating the physical relationship between humans and horses, both on the ground and on the horse, in order to promote physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health in both species. So somatic means of the body. And the somatic function is one of the 4 functions described in Jungian psychology. Carl Jung, the 19th century, early 19th century, late 19th century psychologist, based on alchemy, described 4 functions of the human psyche. So the first function is the intellectual function, which is responsible for thinking, reasoning, discrimination. And it's the most rewarded function in academia and technological society, certainly in the Western world and the modern first world. The intellectual function is what gets rewarded and encouraged and cultivated. But as we'll see, it's also responsible for the most stress. The emotional function is responsible for love, hate, anger, hope, sadness, joy, all the common emotions and the emotional spectrum that everybody goes through each day. And the somatic function is responsible for the senses, the 5 senses: smell, taste, sight, hearing, and touch. The 4th function described by Jung is intuition, also known as the 6th sense. And intuition is a function of instinct, and it is brought to bear in meditation and extrasensory perception. So which of these functions, 2 of these functions are responsible for stress, and 2 of these functions are responsible for stress reduction, are more important for stress reduction. So most stress comes from the intellectual function, and the negative aspects of the intellectual function are worry, complaints and criticism, especially self-criticism in the form of the inner critic, and so-called negative emotions that are not pleasant to feel, like anger, sadness, and anxiety. Stress reduction comes from the somatic function, which is responsible for physical exercise and moving meditation such as Tai Chi and Qigong, and the intuitive, instinctual function such as is active in psychospirituality, in meditation, prayer, and some of the psychic functions. Somebody earlier mentioned Dr. Dean Radin and his work in the intuitive and psychic functions is absolutely key to understanding a lot of how traditional Chinese medicine works. So Qigong is a moving meditation that combines somatics and the intuitive and psychospiritual functions. So why do we work with horses with Qigong? So horses are not very smart intellectually. They don't write computer programs here in Silicon Valley, and they don't write books, but they are masters of somatic intelligence. We call them somatic geniuses. So horses are very grounded in their bodies. They're very heavy. They're very close to the earth. They can feel the earth through their feet. Their feet have energy centers similar to the Yongquan energy centers, the bubbling springs Yongquan energy centers in our feet, and the Laogong energy centers in the palms of our hands. Horses are very comfortable in their bodies, more so than our domestic dogs and cats. The natural horses live on the land. They defecate, procreate, urinate, and eat anywhere and anytime they want. Now, our domestic animals are trained to use cat boxes, and at least in most cities, there are laws that make you walk your dogs at certain times of the day, but horses are comfortable in their bodies. And one key principle of equanimity is that in order to feel comfortable using one's body and doing exercises like Tai Chi and Qigong, we have to get rid of what in the Western world is called body shaming. And people in the Western world grow up, well, in the United States anyway, grow up being ashamed of their bodies. Women are taught that they have to be thin and have flat tummies. And there are all kinds of taboos, that some of which are religious in the Judeo-Christian and even Islamic religions, about the sinfulness of the body or the uncleanliness of the body. So a first step in equanimity is that we have to get rid of everybody's history of body shaming and learn to rejoice in the body and enjoy the body and see the body as a source of joy and recreation and stress reduction. Horses are extremely sensitive to energy. They can sense and emit qi. Usually we are not completely sure whether horses are sensing our body language or our energy, but my experience with horses leads me to believe that they definitely sense our qi. And there are many stories about how horses sense qi. And here we have Parting the Wild Horse's mane with a real horse. So in order to understand how we use Qigong with horses, we understand where the horse's dantian is. And it's kind of analogous to where the human dantian is, which is to say in the lower belly area. And that happens to be right where we sit on the horse. So when we sit on the horse, we're blending our energy centers, blending our dantian energy centers, blending our qi. So equanimity at Stanford began as an employee health program in 2013. Stanford employees get an allowance of about $800 a year for continuing education and anything that will increase their performance at work. And there are many studies that show that reducing stress in employees results in higher productivity, less illness, and lower insurance costs to the employer. And here, especially here in Silicon Valley, companies with corporate health and fitness programs attract better employees. So you have Apple, Google, Facebook, and many other corporations here in Silicon Valley with beautiful fitness centers. I was the doctor at Apple for 10 years in the late 80s to the late 90s. And I worked in the fitness center. My medical office was in the fitness center, and we were offering Tai Chi at Apple back in 1990. So in Stanford Equanimity, there are a couple of different ways that we present it. We have public classes that are 4-week classes. We have private classes for private groups that are a day or two. And we have private sessions and semi-private sessions for individuals and couples. And the couples are often co-workers who have a lot of stress together and come together for Stanford Equanimity. So each week in the 4-week class, there are 4 phases to each class. So the first phase is a touch-in and stress inventory where people talk about their stress. They're coming right from Stanford. Most of them are middle-aged women. I do have some younger people, including some younger men, but most of them are coming right from their stressful jobs at Stanford. And so they want to talk about that early in the class and get that off their chest and out of their minds. The second phase is where you do some simple silk reeling and Qi and Reiki cultivation. We do a lot with Reiki, which is somewhat different from Qi in that it is sentient and compassionate and wise. Whereas Qi, we see it more like energy from a battery or from the wall socket. So we do a little bit of warm up with silk reeling and Qi and Reiki. Then we do 1 Qigong form each week, and I'll show you what forms we use. And then we do an activity with the horses. So for the 4-week program, the first week is just meeting and greeting horses, because most of the people, 95% of the people, have never been around horses before. And some of you might recognize Yang Yang here from one of the nationally known teachers. So it's just, we teach them safety around horses and just generally getting comfortable with horses and how they move and how they respond to us. The second week is grooming, and it's not the kind of grooming where you get the horses clean, but it's actually a meditation. We use grooming as a way to meld with the horse and as a way to do meditation with the horses. Then we start teaching the third week, we teach the students to lead the horse with their dantian, not just with the lead rope, but to actually feel the horse responding to our leadership through the energy connection of the horse and human dantian. And the 4th week is the meditation ride, where we actually put all the Qigong forms together, and we get on the horse and we do the Qigong forms on the horse. We do it to flute music, some very nice flute music called Music as Medicine by Nawang Kuchong, a Tibetan flute player, in duet with Carlos Nikai, who's a Native American flute player. So for equanimity, we do a subset of the Ba Duanjin, and we call it the Wu Duanjin, which are the 5 forms that we can perform on horseback. Big Bear shakes his body, and bending over and touching knees and rocking on the heels cannot be done on horseback. So we do holding up the sky, shooting the arrow, separating heaven and earth, wise old owl turns her head, and punch with an angry gaze. And when we do these forms, we use yin and yang breathing, inhaling and exhaling, to release the negative emotions in this column, and we gather with the inhale, we gather the positive emotions. So Badwan-Yin research shows health benefits for cancer, sleep, musculoskeletal pain, depression, and anxiety. And there's an interesting pilot study in progress from the Tianjin University of Traditional Chinese Medicine looking at Badwan-Yin for recovery from the long-term effects of COVID-19. The thing that I'm most excited about is this study from Michael Chin and Stefanos Kales from Vanderbilt and Harvard. And it's a study of combined, looking at paced breathing and dynamic muscle contractions. And in this study, they had 4 groups. One just did breathing, one did muscle contractions, one did synchronized breathing with muscle contraction. And there was a control group that actually they read articles from Scientific American. And what they found was, they measured heart rate variability as a proxy for the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that is associated with relaxation, as opposed to the fight and flight sympathetic system. It's the feed and breathe relaxation system. And then they did an intervention with a mildly stressful cognitive task, which was actually the Stroop test, where you read words but you have to say what the color is rather than the word. So it's a little bit confusing and it's a little bit stressful. And what they found was that the group who performed the paced breathing and the muscle movement together had the best relaxation response while doing the Stroop test. So the conclusion of Chin and Kales, and my conclusion, is that this is really, really important and really exciting for the people at this forum. Superior activation of the parasympathetic response may help explain the stress-reducing benefits of Tai Chi and Qigong. Unfortunately, the muscle exercise that they did was squeezing a tennis ball, which does not, of course, replicate what we do in Tai Chi and Qigong. But I've been in actual communication with Dr. Chin, and hopefully they will do a more Tai Chi-like activity. Okay, so I have a little video to show you, and let's see. There we go. So to promote this program, I forgot to say early and often, I would really like to see this Stanford program replicated at centers, equestrian centers and wushu centers all around the world. One of our other Stanford programs was replicated like this. And to that end, I've written a book called Equanimity. This is all about the Stanford program and how to conduct it. So if anybody here would like to start a program, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to come wherever you are, especially to China, and help you do this program in combination with somebody who does Qigong really well. So thank you, and I hope to hear from some of you. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. We do have our link, about this book in my website, so you can go to our event website and you can get all this. And thank you very much, Professor Beverley.